I invite you to get centered now. On this 28th day of Lent, Saturday, as we prepare our minds and souls to reflect on the idea of miracles, I invite you to get centered. Our biblical passage for consideration on this 28th day of Lent will be Matthew chapter 14, verses 15 through 36. But first, I want to pose a few thoughts to have in the back of our minds or at the forefront of our minds as we read the biblical passage, as well as reflect on this text, Keep a True Lent by Charles Fillmore. The first thought simply is this: explain the first miracle in our consciousness. What is the first miracle in our consciousness? Explain it. Number two, what are miracles? Number three, does God perform miracles? Explain. And number four, what do miracle workers claim? I may consider the works of Jesus as miraculous, but he considered them the outcome of the operation of divine law. I too can use the dynamic power of right thinking and prayer to bring healing where healing is needed, and blessings where blessings are needed. Just some thoughts to prepare us for our reflection on this 28th day of Lent. Again, the biblical passage for consideration is Matthew chapter 14, verses 15 through 36. Matthew chapter 14, verses 15 through 36. And it reads on this wise: Now when it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, This place is secluded, and the hour is already past to eat. Send the crowds away so that they may go into the villages and buy food for themselves. But Jesus said to them, They do not need to go. You give them something to eat. They said to him, We have nothing here except 5 loaves and 2 fish. And he said, Bring them here to me. And ordering the crowds to sit down on the grass, he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looked up toward heaven. He blessed the food, and breaking the loaves, he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. And they all ate and were satisfied. And they picked up what was left over of the broken pieces, 12 full baskets. There were about 5,000 men who ate, besides women and children. Immediately afterward, he compelled the disciples to get into the boat and to go ahead of him to the other side while he sent the crowds away. After he had sent the crowds away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. And when it was evening, he was there alone. But the boat was already a long distance from the land, battered by the waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them, walking on the sea. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter responded and said to him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." And he said, "Come." And Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came toward Jesus. But seeing the wind, he became frightened. And when he began to sink, aha, aha. Did you catch that? Let me repeat. But seeing the wind, he became frightened. And when he began to sink, he cried out, saying, "Lord, save me." Immediately, Jesus reached out with his hand and took hold of him and said to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" When they got into the boat, the wind stopped, and those who were in the boat worshiped him, saying, "You are truly God's Son." When they had crossed over, excuse me, they came to land at Gennesaret. And when the men of that place recognized him, they sent word into all that surrounding region and brought to him all who were sick. And they pleaded with him that they might just touch the border of his cloak. And all who touched it were cured. Now, these people are familiar with him to the point where they could recognize him, but they weren't as familiar with him as Peter was. And they had this faith that if they could just touch the hem of his garment, they'd be made whole. Peter was doing too much. Jesus was already walking towards him. Why he got to go and walk towards Jesus? Oh, you have little faith. Peter represents the faith center. But why did you doubt? This is underdeveloped faith. And sometimes what we are calling faith is really foolishness. But we figure if we're in God's will, then the Lord will not stop us. And if we're out of the Lord's will, then we'll know because God will stop us. Where does that theology come from? That's why when Peter said, "Lord, bid me to come," Yeshua said, "All right, come on then." Because we want our effort to get, we seduce ourselves into believing that faith is doing the work when it's really personal effort that's doing the work. Thus ends the reading, so we now return to page 178 in Keep a True Lent by Charles Fillmore. Again, we are reflecting on the thought of miracles, and what I love about this reflection is that it brings clarity to what miracles truly are. The first miracle in our consciousness is the transforming of the water of thought into the wine of thought. Through introducing into the consciousness some of the angels of God or true ideas. I would like to add angles of God, different divine perspectives. In reality, miracles are events that take place as a result of the application of a higher law to certain conditions. God never performs miracles if by miracle is meant a departure from universal law. Whatever the prophets did was done by the operation of laws inherent in being and open to the discovery of every man. By the power of his thought, Elijah penetrated the atoms and precipitated an abundance of rain. Jesus used the same dynamic power of thought to break the bonds of the atoms composing the few loaves and fishes of a little lad's lunch. And 5,000 persons were fed. Science is discovering the miracle-working dynamics of religion, but science has not yet comprehended the dynamic directive power of man's thought. All so-called miracle workers claim that they do not of themselves produce the marvelous results, that they are only the instruments of a superior entity. Jesus said, "He that believeth on me, the works that I do shall he do also." As I go on in the exercise of spiritual faculties, I shall strengthen them and understand them better, and I shall cease to talk about anything as miraculous. I affirm, the clear, unclouded mind of Jesus Christ dominates all my thinking, and I discern the omnipresent laws of spirit. Again, the clear, unclouded mind of Jesus Christ dominates all my thinking, and I discern the omnipresent laws of spirit. Third time, the clear, unclouded mind of Jesus Christ dominates all my thinking, and I discern the omnipresent laws of spirit. Thus ends our reflection on this 28th day of our Lenten observance. Let's eliminate negative thinking, and we peacefully depart, going our own way until we meet again, knowing this truth, that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Wherever I am, God is. Wherever you are, God is. Thank you, God, in us, as us, around us, through the Christ within, and so it is. Bye for now.